Right, thank you so much, Ms. Rabia, for sharing this issue with us. And now I would like to call upon Mr. Wajahat Ali. He's an advocate and co-chair NACG Pakistan. Please welcome Mr. Wajahat Ali.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you for inviting me for today's consultation. I will talk about reforms in the child labor laws, which are necessary for implementation. When we talk about the child labor in Pakistan, it is widely prevalent in all sectors of the economy in Pakistan. And the true picture of child labor is not present in Pakistan, because the last National Child Labor Survey was conducted almost 2 decades before, in 1996. And after that, different national and international organizations conducted different surveys. Those are only approximations and do not give the exact statistics about the child labor situation in Pakistan. So the true picture of the child labor situation in Pakistan is not present. So there is a need to conduct the national level survey to know about the exact number of child laborers in the country. Pakistan has enacted different national and provincial legislation on child labor, and these legislations, different ages of children are set in these laws. There is no uniform age for the employment of child in the vocation. Child labor laws exist in different general thematic codes of the Pakistan, as well as the exclusive acts which were enacted on the subject of child labor. When we talk about the general thematic code, so the Constitution of Pakistan, which is the mother of all laws and applicable on the constitutional institutions, Iqbal Bittu Sahab told us before about the Article 11.3, which says that any child below the age of 14 years cannot be employed in any factory, mine, or hazardous employment. Whereas Article 25A, which promises the citizens of Pakistan that the state shall provide free and compulsory education to all children between the ages of 5 to 16 years. So there is a contradiction. On one side, Constitution says that the employment age starts from 14 years for a child, and on the other side it says that the state shall provide free compulsory education to children between 5 to 16 years. So this contradiction needs to be removed, and the age must be raised up to the age of 16 years or up to the 18 years according to the UNCRC standards. So when we talk about the legislation issues, at federal legislation there are different laws like Mines Act 1923, Pledging of Labours Act 1933, Factories Act 1934, West Pakistan Shops and Establishment Ordinance 1969, Employment of Children Act 1991, and Bonded Labour System Abolition Act 1992. Amongst all these laws, the most popular law which was applicable before the 18th Constitutional Amendment was Employment of Children Act 1991. That was applicable throughout the Pakistan, and after the 18th Constitutional Amendment, the subject of labor was devolved to the provinces, and provinces have enacted their own legislation on this topic. Different provinces have enacted this legislation on the Employment of Children Act. The Employment of Children Act 1991, which was applicable throughout the Pakistan before the 18th Constitutional Amendment, it sets the age of 14 years for employment of any child. So this age must be raised up to the age of 18 years or up to the age of 16 years minimum. And it provides the penalties for the perpetrators, which is 20,000 fine or imprisonment of 1 year, which is very low plenty. This plenty also needs to be enhanced. And after the 18th constitutional amendment, provinces have enacted their own laws. Like Punjab restriction on employment of children Act 2016 was enacted, and they set the age of 15 years minimum age for employment of a child. Similarly, KP Prohibition of Employment of Children Act 2015, they set the age of 14 years for a child for employment and set the age of adolescents, which is 14 to 18 years, and regulate the profession of hazardous employment for adolescents. And 12-year age set for light work for the child. So that means that in Pakistani laws, the age of employment starts from the age of 12 years, which is against the international standards, against the provisions of the UNCRC. Similarly, Singh provinces have enacted Singh Prohibitions of Employment of Children Act 2017, which set the age of 14 years for employment of a child. So you see that all the provinces have set their own ages for the employment of a child. Being a child rights activist, it's my suggestion that the age must be unique for the employment of a child, and it should be 18 years according to the provisions of the UNCRC. Another very important subtopic in child labor is child domestic labor. Punjab is the only province which has enacted legislation on the child domestic labor. And all other provinces, including ICT, has not enacted legislation on child domestic labor. It prohibits the Punjab Domestic Workers Act 2019. It prohibits employment of children under 15. So it sets the age of 15 years. And police cannot arrest violators of this law. And the punishment and fine which are prescribed in this law is very low. It starts from 5,000 rupees fine and imprisonment of 1 month for the employer who illegally employ any child. So these must be raised, punishments must be raised so that deterrence could be created in the society. Recently, last year, ICT Domestic Workers Bill 2021 was passed by the National Assembly and then referred to the Senate for approval. But the Senate didn't pass that bill within 90 days, and bill was referred back to the National Assembly for deliberation. So this couldn't become the act. I will talk a little bit about the international legal framework on the child labor. Pakistan has ratified various international conventions. The most important one is UNCRC, and then the different ILO conventions which Pakistan has ratified. ILO Convention on Child Labor, Minimum Age Convention, 1973. Worst Form of Child Labor Convention, 1999. Domestic Workers Convention, 2011. And the SARC Convention on Prevention and Combating Trafficking in Women and Children for Prostitution, 2002. All these conventions Pakistan has ratified. And the Sustainable Development Goal is target 8.7, which gives target to the states that eliminate all forms of child labor by 2025 year. So, UNCRC Article 32 provides that protection of children from economic exploitation and work that is dangerous and might harm their health, development and dignity, or might harm their education. So according to UNCRC, below 18-year child cannot be employed for the economic exploitation in the country. Now the international dilemma is that ILO Convention set the minimum age for employment under ILO Minimum Age Convention, which Pakistan has ratified in 2006, 15 years minimum age. And it also prescribes minimum age for the light work for the child, which is 13 years, and prohibits all form of hazardous work for children for the age of 18 years. So there is a contradiction between UNCRC and ILO conventions. So we also ratified ILO convention, we also ratified UNCRC conventions. Which convention we have to follow? Under the Constitution of the Pakistan, the age starts from the 14 years. And the Constitution says that up to 16 years, child will be given free education. So we need to harmonize our laws according to the international standards, according to the UNCRC standards. UNCRC is the most popular and widely ratified convention. Almost all countries in this world have ratified this convention except the United States of America. So we need to set the age of 18 years for the employment of the child. This is talk about the bonded labor. All the provinces have enacted different laws on the bonded labor, but their rules are missing. So we need to enact the rules of the bonded labor so that bonded labor could be abolished in Pakistan. And lastly, I will talk about the review of child labor related laws and policies. Khalil Saab is present here. He has done work on this issue and wrote a chapter in 2023 State of Pakistan Children Report. I got this material from that report. Bureau of International Labour Affairs, United States Department of Labour reviewed Pakistani child labour related laws and policies in accordance with the international standards as of 2019. Whether Pakistani laws and policies compatible with the international standards or not. So they use different benchmarks to measure whether the Pakistani laws and policies are meets the international standards on child labor issues. The first benchmark they used to measure the Pakistani laws and policies was minimum age for work. Punjab legislation policies meets the international standard. Next benchmark was minimum age for hazardous work. AP and Punjab meets international standards. And the next one is identification of hazardous occupation activities prohibited for children. All provinces including ICT meet international standards. Next benchmark is prohibition of forced labor. All provinces meets the provisions of international standards. And the prohibition of child trafficking. No province meets the international standard. Prohibition of commercial sexual exploitation of children. Punjab and Sindh provinces meet international standards. And prohibition of using children in illicit activities. Punjab and Sindh province meet the international standards. And the minimum age for voluntary state military recruitment. Because this is a federal issue, so this is according to the international standards. Pakistan meets the international standards for employment of a child in military recruitment. And recruitment of military recruitment by non-state armed groups. Punjab and Sindh meet international standard. Compulsory education age, all provinces meet international standards. And free public education, all provinces meet international standards because their laws and policies are compatible with the international standards, although the implementation of these laws and policies are missing. And lastly, my suggestion is that, according to my own knowledge and experience, that the child labor is directly linked with the poverty. Poverty and child labor are directly linked with each other. And you know that Pakistani economy comes under the category of low middle income countries economy. And Pakistani population, 22% Pakistani population lives below the poverty line. this is the latest statistics which were provided to National Assembly few months before. Before that, poverty ratio was 24%, so it has been reduced to 22%. So, because of poverty and socio-economic condition of the families are not good, there are differences, socio-economic differences. So poor families exploit their children and involve them in child labor, child marriages, prostitution, trafficking, the drug abuse and other different abuses. So poverty needs to be eliminated, and government should allocate sufficient budget to address the poverty and to address the relevant ministries to raise the poverty issue, to eliminate poverty. And the other thing is education out of school children in Pakistan. More than 23 million children are out of school. Because of out of school, they are involved in the child labor and other abuses. And after the COVID 2019, out of school children were increased, and 1 million more children were out of school after the COVID 2019 situation. So it is my suggestion that government should eliminate the poverty in the country, and out of school situation must be addressed, and awareness must be created in the society so that people know that child labor is an offense, and it must be addressed by the policymakers, parents and other stakeholders. Thank you very much.